Hi, this is the fellow passenger. We got to talk about Bristol. It seems to have such a vibrant electronic music scene. Artists, instrument manufacturers, software manufacturers, people who take initiative of putting on events, as big as Bristonica, which I went to last year and the year before. If you're not familiar with Bristonica, part of it is sort of a bit of a trade show where you have the opportunity to get hands-on with lots of electronic music instruments from big manufacturers but also to small boutique ones. But that's only one part of it. There are talks, workshops, live music acts, but perhaps the biggest thing for me was the social aspect. All the people there who are into electronic music, and you can talk about all these things and they actually know what you're talking about. Quite fascinating. I would like to dig deeper into this. Bristol is quite far away from where I live, but Benjamin has agreed to chat with me. Benjamin works for Elevator Sounds, which is one of the few dedicated electronic music instrument shops in the UK. They are also the organizers of Bristonica every year. But Benjamin, as it turns out, also have lots of fingers in other pies when it comes to electronic music. So without further ado, let's chat to Ben. Thank you for watching. All right, Ben, thank you so much for agreeing to do this chat.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
I don't know what would be the best way of introducing you. I know that you work for Elevator Sounds in Bristol.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a little bit of research and found out a few other things that you do sort of sound design, and you're involved in something called, is it Basement 74 or something?
That finished quite a while ago. That was
all right.
Yeah, that was a short-lived sort of sound design studio that existed underneath the shop for a few years that I did a little bit of work for.
Okay.
In the day.
So maybe before we sort of jump into the deep, I'm really curious to hear more about what's happening in Bristol. But how would you summarize who you are in terms of electronic music?
Okay. I am a performer first and foremost, live performer, incidental producer because of that, and an educator, electronic music and sort of synthesis educator. So that sort of covers my role both in the shop as the shopkeeper at Elevator Sound, and also I teach. Outside of that, I lecture at universities and do sort of one-on-one private teaching and things like that.
Now, let's just jump straight into the deep end. Like, what's the secret sauce in Bristol? Like, what's the magic? How can there be so much stuff going on there? Like, I just don't understand it. So I think I probably bumped into you during the latest Bristonica event.
Yes, yeah.
Which I believe that Elevator Sounds is somewhat connected to.
Yeah, we run it. It's our festival. For the five of us that work at the shop, we're the ones who sort of put it together over the course of the year, and then run it over the weekend.
So I would love to hear more about that. But before we dive into that, you got, like, the more I scratch the surface, literally earlier this year, I bought a synth online.
Mm-hmm.
Just on eBay, an old one, and it had a sticker on it saying Bleep Club, I think it is.
Yes, I know the Bleep Club guys very well.
Yeah, okay. So then I think, did they have a stall or a stand or something at Bristonica?
Yeah, they did. So they had, it's very important for us to make sure that the sort of local communities involved in the festival, and also for people who are attending who maybe are looking for places they can get into, either performing or just sort of having a go at live jams. So Bleep Club, they're good. Marcus and Nick and the crew that run Bleep Club are good friends of ours. And excuse me. And they host like a monthly sort of bring your own synth jam night in Bristol. In the front room of a venue called Strange Brew, and we, as Elevator Sound, run a night called Escher, which is in the back room, which is for sort of local producers to come and sort of road test tunes they've been working on, so work in progress stuff. They've got a nice big sound system back there, So people bring their stuff on a USB, we run it through the speakers, and everyone sort of hangs out, chats, shares production tips, catches up. It's a really nice little community.
How has this community built up? I just don't understand. Like, I never. Maybe it's because London is too big. I just don't know. Like, I haven't really. I've been to sort of EMOM nights and things, but it sounds like there is such a network in Bristol. Like, how does that happen?
I think we're very lucky with the size. Bristol's sort of small enough that if you go to the same venues, if you go to the same nights, you're bound to bump into a bunch of the same people. I also think there's a really good sort of environment of crossover and experimentation in Bristol. You know, quite often you go to a punk gig, you go to a synth jam night, you go to a weird cinema thing, you're sort of likely to bump into the same people at a lot of them. And I think that's what, you know, people talk about, sort of Bristol music and yeah, like you said, what's the sort of secret sauce? And I think it's that a lot of people are very open and there's a lot of crossover musically with, you know, producers working with bands, working with, you know, graphic designers, visual artists. And it's very fluid. There seems to be a big lack of competition. Everyone's sort of like working together for the good of the scene, for the community.
I'm also, like, when I was there, I didn't realize, what are they called? Udio.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Udo, Udio, potato.
But they are also from Bristol, right? And
yes,
then
yeah.
And then you get, what are they called? Slate and Ash.
Yeah. So we've got, who have we got here? Udo, Slate and Ash, who are just over the road from us at the shop. We've got Beat Boop Electronics, the sort of modular and tape enthusiasts who are on the top floor of our shop. That's where Jack has his workshop. In the basement, where basement 74 used to be, we've got the Damaru case building workshop. There's also who else? Feed Me Synthesis, Thorny, Future Sound Systems. Who else? Lottie Canto. So there's quite a few Bristol-based synth companies now. Oh, and Bug Brand, of course, the legendary Tom Bugs.
And what like, where? So if someone moves to Bristol or is visiting Bristol, I mean, my impression was that I live almost on the east coast on the UK, so I can't really pop over that easily. But when I came over for Bristonica, I came over the day before and I popped into your shop and it just felt like a place where I started lots of conversations with people I had no idea who they were. And it felt like that sort of environment. And you could talk about stuff that most people elsewhere it's like, what are you talking about? Like, people who understood what you were saying.
Yeah,
I found that really good. Like, would you say that Elevator Sound is one of those places where people get to know each other?
Yeah, I think that's the environment we've always tried to foster around the shop. You know, I've been behind the counter for the last 10 years. I'm the sort of store manager, so it's my job to be in the shop and, you know, pick what goes out on display and make sure that when people come in, because, you know, it's a synth and hardware shop. I think it's a very intimidating space for a lot of people, and sort of we get people that come in every day and they're like, oh, I don't know anything, I don't want to touch anything, and you're like, no, it's a music shop. Like, you're here to, you know, have a play. Like, we've got stuff set up that you can't try out, you know, anywhere else in England, especially. So, you know, having the space where people feel comfortable to come and just sort of have a go is, I think, for me anyway, is the most important thing about having the physical shop space. And yeah, we get, you know, plenty of people who come in just to chat. You know, we've got our regulars, and quite often, you know, 90% of the time, no one's buying anything. People are just coming in to catch up, hang out. Maybe they want to have a go on a new module, or they've seen that we've got, you know, what was the one recently? The Torso S4, their new sampler. We got one of those out, did a little video on Instagram, and then we've had a few people come in and be like, hey, I've heard really good things about this. Can I come and have a go? And you're like, yeah, absolutely. You know, everything's always turned on and always turned up.
So were you there from when Elevator Sound started?
I joined about 2 months afterwards. So the shop officially opened in August 2014. I moved to Bristol to go to university in September. And Marco, who's the owner of Elevator Sound, came to do a talk at our uni sort of opening week welcome thing for the production students to basically say like, hey, look, I've just opened a music shop around the corner. If you need to buy an interface or a keyboard, or and back then we were just doing sort of small potato stuff, a few little synths, some Focusrite interfaces, speakers, things like that. I went in with a friend of mine, and I'd already had quite a lot of experience working in studios in my like local youth club and in Exeter where I grew up, and basically sold my mate a Focusrite 202. Was like, look, this thing's good. It does what you need. It sounds all right. They sound pretty solid. Build quality is great. You should buy one of these. And then I think Marco clocked that and went, this guy kind of knows what he's talking about. Do you want to come and do some shifts here? And 10 years later, I'm still there.
So how it's such a niche thing, and if I'm thinking of, I'm closer to London. I'm about an hour outside London.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment. I just don't think there is no equivalent to Elevator Sounds there. Like how do you survive? Like is it hard? Is it a labor of love and not necessarily really making ends meet, or is it working out? Like
I mean, we at the moment we've got 5 staff in the UK. We've got the store in Barcelona that we opened last year.
Oh wow, I had no idea.
And we've got the festival as well. And I think, there's a benefit to it being niche. I think, there isn't a huge amount of competition, and, the other, especially the other independent synth stores around the UK, shout out to Signal Sounds and Rubber Dub. They're really good friends of ours. And, we have, mutual respect and understanding. And I think, it's quite nice that it's, there's only so many of us sort of doing it. It means that if people are like, oh, okay, I want, I live in, the south of England or near London or somewhere, I want to go buy modules from somewhere. Oh, well, I can just hop on the train to Bristol and come and see these guys. So ticking over nicely. It's business is good.
Okay, good. It's like, sounds like one of those things that I assume, probably including myself, like, oh, would I dare doing something, because it must be such a I'm not necessarily only talking financially, but like quite a commitment to dare to do such a thing. Who's like Marco, has he got a lot of, is he a driving force just in general?
Oh, very much so. Yeah I think the shop never would have got to where it would have been without him sort of at the helm. He's got a lot of ideas, he's got a lot of passion, and sort of keeps us all going. He's been a very good boss over the years. We've been very well looked after, and seeing the shop grow from what it was to now sort of where it is, where we've ended up here 10 years later. Obviously couldn't have done it without him, really.
And how did Bristonica happen? Because I think one end of the spectrum is actually just to know what do we need to have in place to put together such a festival, because there's anything from like getting the venue security, like all that sort of stuff. But then on top of that, like all the contacts, like good artists, like it sounds like it must take an enormous amount of time and effort to put something like that together.
Yeah, so it takes about a year. We start thinking about next year's festival maybe 2 weeks after the previous one's just gone. It sort of started from we were going to Super Booth every year, and we were sort of looking around and being like, look, there's we've got sort of Synth Fest, and I think there was like a little something in London at that point, but we were like, do you know what, there's nothing that's no sort of synth festival in the UK that's maybe focused on not just the hardware, but also, the culture around electronic music, the music itself. So myself, Marco, James, Hamish, and Fiona at the shop, we've all been putting on gigs and events for years. Marco was a I was venue managing a pretty big venue in Bristol. I think at the time when we did our first Machina. So it was a lot of work, but I think it was something that came very natural to all of us. It was a very sort of familiar territory. I think just upscaled quite a lot.
Very impressive. And I think for me, the biggest thing was maybe the social aspect of it, like having a chance to chat to people. So just to fill in anyone who's watching this channel who's not from the UK and maybe are not familiar with Bristonica, would you say that it's sort of a little bit similar to Superbooth? Like it's one aspect is the equipment that will be on display, but then you get live big gigs, talks, workshops. It goes on over a weekend. It's sort of Saturday, Sunday, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's Saturday, Sunday, yeah.
I arrived on the Friday and I can't remember if it was you, if there was someone else in the shop who sort of said like, "Oh, come along tonight. We've booked this."
Oh yeah, that would have been me. I love
probably.
Pre-Machina Friday in the shop is one of my absolute favorite days of the year because everyone who's visiting, loads of the artists, a lot of the stall holders will come in a day early. They'll go to the venue and set up, and then they'll sort of come to the shop and hang out. So we end up, with a shop packed full of, friends and colleagues and peers from all over the world. It's a wonderful day. And then we do the sort of Friday night drinks afterwards, which have been the ruin of some people over the years.
But it was good. I mean, if I compare it to the other week, I went to this electro thing in London. But at that, like when you go to like a night like that, it's not really a good opportunity to talk to anyone. I mean, you can't really hear what anyone is saying.
Was that the big one, the Cause with Juan Atkins and Doppler effect? Yeah. Oh, I'm so jealous. I really wanted to go to that.
I mean, I would say like, okay, so on a sort of side note, the venue was amazing. I don't know if you've ever been to it. It's like an old sort of decaying cinema that they've turned into this venue. It's huge.
Nice.
The sound was good. Apart from in the bar, I didn't really like the sound in there. Like it was just, I don't know. But then there's something that used to be different years ago. Now I sense that there's a lot more people, like they watch the act and they maybe nod their head a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like the music is implying that more should happen, which I feel like it used to be more like people being in the moment. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? It's difficult to explain, but it's just like something is different.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a plethora of like sort of social factors. I think that lean into that. Obviously, phones in the club, the fact that there's a smoking area now. I think the fact that especially from my experience with a lot of electro crowds, people are sort of getting older.
I think so. Maybe, I think that I'm definitely committing that crime.
Yeah, maybe going buck wild on the dance floor for 5 hours just isn't an option for people. And also, I think there is inherently there is a social element, and when you get big events like that, God, I mean, I was at a friend's show in Bristol on Saturday. At Strange Brew again. So my friend Lucas puts on these doozy parties, and I spent most of my night just in the front room, just sitting and chatting to people. I did a cursory sort of hour or so in the back having a dance, but it was mostly like, oh great, I get to come have a pint and just sit around and chat with everyone. And
I almost wish
it's an important element to it.
But I almost wish that, like, if this evening would have been in a way that you actually could have a conversation to someone, because that was tricky, like in that, but anyway, side note, yes, I did go. I couldn't because I had to catch the last train, so I didn't see Juan Atkins, but I saw a lot of other good artists, but nice. Can't win them all. But yes, it was the third time I saw Doppler effect. I think the first time I saw them at Bristonica, not this year, was it the year before?
Last year, 2023, so not the last event, but the one before that.
Yeah. There was something, actually, let's just, another side note, talk about that. There was something that happened at that gig. Then I saw it in Bristol, and it's like, there's something weird. I mean, I really like Doppler effect and all the other Gerald Donald type stuff.
Hmm.
But there was something that just like felt really out of sync, like the delay or something. And I thought like, oh gosh, there's something not right. And then I've seen it twice, the same gig twice again. And one of them was here, and it's the same thing. And I was like, okay, so I suppose it's meant to
It's
be like this.
it's that sort of Doppler effect wonkiness, I think, and it threw a lot of people. I think it threw me a little bit on the dance floor as well. It was like, oh, where's the snare coming back in? But, it's yeah, I think it is. It's part of it. I think as part of the experience is a little bit of cybernet confusion.
Yeah. Well, anyway, back to Bristol. So, okay, so I'm just thinking, trying to connect the dots here. So we got the different companies who are making musical instruments and stuff. Then you have the places like Elevator Sounds, and you're mentioning Strange Brew, which seems to be like an integral part in the scene. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. So it was a venue that was opened, I think, 2020, bravely, by Bob, Sean, Kerry, and Lee, who have been putting on parties in Bristol as Dirty Talk for years. Very, very legendary parties, some seminal sort of clubbing experiences for me and a lot of my mates, and they were sort of famous for, throwing parties in these odd spaces, warehouses and biker bars and all sorts. And it sort of came to the time that they were sort of going to open a venue. They got a lot of crowdfunding support, and it is very much the sort of lifeblood of one area of the music scene in Bristol. They do all sorts of gigs there. I mean, I went to a show the other week, which was all experimental and handmade instruments. I've seen hardcore bands there. I've seen drone shows, punk nights, disco, all sorts there. They do club nights. They've got this sort of little back room, which is very like low ceiling, cage around the DJ, concrete bunker. And then the front room, big open space, big disco ball. It's been decorated over the years they do like art markets there. They have a mural wall that gets redone like every 6 months by local artists. And the venue is sort of like dripping in weird art sort of everywhere you look. There's things that have been donated or things that have been made for the space by friends of the venue. I could gush about Brew all night long.
What are there any other locations, venues, shops that is integral into the sort of electronic music scene in Bristol, you would say?
Yeah, I mean, so we've got, I guess, sort of like shops wise, there's a plethora of record stores. You've got Collector's Cave, who are about a 5-minute walk away from us, who do they do loads of like secondhand stuff, all sorts of records, and like quite a lot of hi-fi. There's Idle Hands, the sort of famous dance music store, who were actually occupying the building when Elevator Sound first started. So they had the front room, and then we had a little room in the back. Chris has been, plying his trade for I think about 14 years now, and had a massive impact on the sort of musical landscape of Bristol. There's Disc Frisk, which is run by Corey Miller, good friend of mine. He specializes in a lot of like import records, so that's a place where you get your like Turkish disco, your like garage bangra, your weird sort of cosmiche Balearic stuff. And then venues wise, we've got the Cube, which is a sort of independent cinema that's been operating for I think 20 or 25 years, and that's where you can go and see all sorts of weird films, performance art. They do quite a lot of like themed nights where they have sort of weird cabaret on stage, and then like a sing-along film, or there'll be a fancy dress theme. Where else have we got? Mickey Zog's, which is the pub that is run by Nudes Radio, which for years was just on Surrey Street, and they're now moving it. So that's a sort of radio station and pub, which has been the sort of meeting point. I remember sort of taking my mum there a couple of years ago after a meal and being like, do you want to come and meet all of my music mates, because they all just hang out in this one pub. Zogs, there's I mean, there's other venues like one that's sort of cropped up recently is there's a beer company in Bristol called Moor Beer, MOOR, and they've started hosting gigs in their brewery room, and it's lots of like punk and noise and experimental stuff. Saw Eviction there last year, and that was one of the best sets I've ever seen. It's like climbing on the rafters, hanging off things, and it was fantastic. So there's a lot going on, and that's sort of tip of the iceberg stuff. Those are just my personal favourites.
So what about the people? Would you say that how many are there? I can imagine that there is a smaller group of people that are the driving force behind a lot of things, and then there is a huge crowd that enjoy those things. Mm-hmm. Like, how big would you say that like core is?
Oh, I mean,
it's a tricky one.
I wear a lot of hats, so I sort of hop between a lot of different groups of people. I think for if you were to break it down to like one core group who are like very integral to like nightlife and things running in Bristol, I'd say it's hard to say because there's also loads of genres, loads of scenes and pockets of the music scene in Bristol that I just don't cross paths with. But I don't know, maybe like 100, maybe more, maybe less. It depends. Like, if you were looking at, say, like an individual venue, say, somewhere like the Cube, there might be maybe sort of, because that's all volunteer run as well. So there might be, I don't know, 20 or 30 volunteers who run it and put things on there. But then outside of that, like inner sphere, you've got promoters who put on events there or people who book films there. But it does feel like a very core group. Like if you go to an event, if you go to a jam night, you go to a club night, it's not like the people who are running it are backstage in this sort of untouchable area. They're often around. And, I had a strange chance meeting with someone in the pub a few weeks ago. And we just started chatting. It turns out she'd recently moved in with a friend of a friend. And then I bumped into her 2 nights later, and she'd met half of the like promoters in Bristol just at one club night. So it's a very small scene, and I think it's very easy to meet people, which is beneficial.
We're a small group of people, fairly local. I live sort of in between Colchester and Ipswich, and we have been running now for a couple of years. We've been running EMOM nights in Colchester, and then there's one of the guys. He also ran an interesting organization called Clip, which gives like young people, like teenagers and stuff, an opportunity to get hands-on with like modular synths and like making music and doing all sorts of stuff. But one thing that I find we are struggling with now, I feel like, especially like, there's a fair few people into some form of electronic music around here. And after a couple of years, like most of them have played live at least twice, but some of them have played live 3 times. And it's almost like how to create something where you give for the people who are willing to just evolve, like the next step after EMOM doesn't really exist. Like it's like a big gap to then, I don't know what that would be like, would play at big venues or like it's, but I get the impression that at Bristol, you get every single layer for someone who's just starting out to like really world-known artists like coming from Bristol, and you get like every single layer in between, and you have a chance to meet those people and do that. I just wonder, like, do you have any, what should we do? We were really curious about Bleep Club because it feels like that's something different to EMOM. But also you were mentioning that listening to your, what did you call it? You call it Escher or something?
Escher, yeah.
Where you have the opportunity of hearing your music on a bigger sound system. Is that right?
Because that's... sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I got decent studio monitors here, but it's not quite like hearing it through a big system. And like that would be something... And I mean, yeah, the system we're using for EMOM is all right, but I don't know, like it feels like there is a whole gap missing, and it would be nice to start building more of a community here, because I assume that if you're in Bristol, and even if you're really new to that type of music or genre or whatever it is, that you would be in an environment where you can take your first steps and you can grow, and getting also that in itself must make other people curious who didn't even know they were interested in that sort of stuff. How does that happen? I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the sort of like transitionary step between like doing, I mean, it's like, you know, being in a band or being like a solo artist with an acoustic guitar, right? It's like going from, I've written some songs, or I've written a set, or I've got a rough idea of what I want to do. Okay, I'll go to an open mic and I'll do it. I also forgot to shout out We All Play Synth, which is the Bristol open mic night, which is excellently run by Ant and James Bragg and Manolo, which is super fun. So we do have our own sort of like Bristol specific EMOM. I think that gap between going and doing your like 15-20 minute open mic set to then getting booked to play nights is, you know, it's a big gap. I think for, you know, also speaking as a promoter, like finding artists who are like, okay, yeah, no, I can do half an hour. And, you know, I love finding artists where it's, you know, maybe their first or second gig. We intentionally with Machine and Bristonica try and leave a few sets at the start open for sort of smaller local artists. And this year especially, we're trying to really focus on sort of acts in Bristol who maybe haven't played before, especially haven't played a festival before. I think a lot of getting those opportunities relies on, you know, having a healthy scene, having promoters who will prioritize supporting like new local artists. And, you know, if those spaces don't exist, looking at sort of creating them for yourself, or turning the EMOM into like a pool of artists almost. I was recently at a music conference, Ment Festival in Slovenia, and I met Jakob and Anna, who run a fantastic community called Clockwork Voltage out there. Which started off as, I think, a sort of, come and, you know, maybe learn to build some modules, learn how to perform with modular, you know, just come and have a go and get stuck in. And what it's become is almost this, like, not quite an agency because they're not taking any money for it, but this sort of roster where clubs will contact them and say, hey, look, we've got 2 sets, we want some live acts. Can you put it out to your community of maybe 20 or 30 people? See if someone wants to play, and sort of setting it up as, you know, okay, we've got people here who've, you know, performed 2 or 3 times. They've done the EMOM thing. I think they're ready. You know, putting it out there and saying like, look, if you're doing a night, you want some interesting like local live acts, let us know. We've got a big pool of people. We had at Machina last year, we had the We All Play Synth lot. We're basically like, look, we've got a bunch of sort of slots in the daytime between some of the talks. We really want to show off what you guys do and some people from your community. We've got, I think it was 9 slots over the course of the day, 15-20 minutes each. And we said, right, put it out to your community and see who wants to come and play. And we had a really fantastic mix of different artists, all, you know, proper like underground, Bristol acts all from around the city. But I do agree that making the jump from jamming in your bedroom or jamming in the studio to then doing an EMOM to then like going and getting a half an hour to an hour set, there is a gap there, and I think it is a space that I think across the country needs addressing.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly I feel like there is opportunity there, and also there's one aspect. We have been talking about doing something a bit more like Bleep Club, because when at the EMOM events, that there is more of a the people who make the music, that there is more of an opportunity to sort of make something together and actually learn from one another, like how each other are thinking, or especially when you do something a bit more experimental, because it's not as if you can necessarily look up a YouTube tutorial on it. Like, it's more like exchanging ideas in person. That would be really nice to nurture in a way. We're hoping, we're working a little bit with the local modern art gallery and see if we can do some regular thing, but it's more towards that. It's not necessarily so much about the performance. It's sort of more about like experimental in terms of making the music together, do something like that and see what comes out of it, which can end up as performances, but we shall see. We're not quite sure what the format will be, but
I think there is a need for these sort of creative third spaces, right? For, okay, you know, you want to go talk to some people about electronic music or the thing that you're into, but maybe you don't want to go to a club. It might not be accessible. It might not, it might start too late. It's not maybe, the right environment for that sort of thing. So having somewhere where you can go and talk about the nerdy thing you're interested in, share ideas with each other, but in a way that isn't, capitalist fueled. You have to buy a ticket and you have to, come in and buy a drink. Actually just giving people a space that they can come and talk to each other and share a communal interest, I think is very important. And across, not just in music, but I think across the board, that's something that is, woefully lacking in this country at the moment.
I now being super egotistical, like from the Bristonica thing, there was I can't remember where it was, but I think, was it the first evening? Maybe. I was talking to a girl who is planning to start making Eurorack modules. She hasn't made a module yet, but she had an idea about something. And then we were chatting to one of the exhibitors, an American guy who had made some sort of crossfader module or something. And there was something, we had the three of us had a conversation about having two Turing machines with a crossfader, so you could sort of smoothly go from one melody to another, so you could sort of crossfade between them. It was just an interesting idea, and we were chatting about it. And during the night at the hotel, I just made a little prototype in Max for Live, and then I bumped into them the next day, and I was like, oh look at this, and I think that in itself, it was so good. We're having that conversation, and we're just doing some experiments, and it led to some, because the three of us were chatting, and unless the three of us would have been chatting, that would have never happened. And it was just like chance encounter. It's just sort of happened. And I think those sort of things, that's what I would like to capture somehow.
Yeah, there's that sort of interesting creative flow when you're not, we get it in the shop all the time. People come in, you're chatting shit, someone comes up with a stupid idea, you run with it, and then before you know it, you're like, actually, wait, no, this is workable. When being able to have space and time to creatively discuss things and explore ideas without necessarily having this a goal in mind. You're not it's not like you've got a meeting and you're like, right, we've got 2 hours to design this new module. It's you're just chatting away and someone goes, oh, do you know what? I bought this recently, but I wish it could do X, Y, and Z. And someone's like, oh, well, actually, I've got an old design for something similar like that. And then, the idea snowballs from there. And yeah, it's nice to see those things happen in real time.
Working in the shop and you're having all the modules set up and having the chance to perhaps spend a bit of time with a lot of different types of equipment, has that changed you? As in, have you developed in terms of your music making skills and performance skills, just having had a chance to actually being exposed to all this equipment, do you think?
Oh, massively. When I first started working in the shop, I had a really basic knowledge of subtractive synthesis. I'd never used any modular stuff before. I think we only got into doing modular around 2016. I went to Schneider's Lud and spent 2 hours patching a giant ADAC system and not getting any sound out of it, and then left very much with my tail between my legs, but came back to Bristol and was like, guys, this modular stuff, we got to get into it. It's super cool. And lots of late nights we'd close up, think about sort of 5 o'clock. Idle Hands would shut at 6, so I'd go out the front, hang out, maybe buy some records, and then go back into the shop and just doodle around with the modular and work out how everything worked. And many mornings of the postie knocking on the door because I've forgotten to open up because I'm too engrossed in whatever bit of equipment is. Usually I try and make sure that every morning I'll have at least 10 minutes of just like jamming on something. Just it might be something unfamiliar, it might be a bit of equipment I've used a lot, but just trying to do a little something at the start of every day. As sometimes once the workday kicks in, it's lots of emails, it's lots of stock management, it's giving people advice and support over the phone, chasing up ETAs for new bits of equipment. So there might be days where I don't really get to play on any of the synths, so actually giving myself a little bit of time for that in the morning is important. And it's sort of massively informed the way that I write and create music outside of work. It's been pretty pivotal for my personal music, I think.
Tell me about your music. What's your cup of tea? What do you make?
So somewhere in the sort of nether region between dub and sort of the experimental end of dub, electro, specifically the sort of like Dutch West Coast bunker and sort of creme organization, like sort of very crunchy, very machine driven electro, a little bit of like old school house, some sort of like modern club influences, and a lot of synth pop, cold wave, goth. It sort of goes all over. It
sounds like everything. But okay, let's just like go back to what you said first. Dub. Are we talking about like actual dub, or are you talking chain reaction, basic channel, that sort of dub, or literally?
Oh no, I'm talking sort of original, proper like roots reggae dub.
Oh right, okay.
It was one of the forms of music I fell in love with as a kid. In fact, have I still got it here? Where's the record? Sorry, I'm sat in front of all of my records right now. What's the Professionals the Incubation it's called? Prince. Have I got it? No, I can't find it. Actually, right here it is. There we go. One of the first records I ever bought. Professionals Meet the Aggravators at Joe Gibbs. And I used to listen to it late at night as a teenager after smoking a cheeky one out the window. And it like blew me away. It was this idea that, oh wait, hold on, that, I was a metal punk and metal kid until that point, and I was like, there's this heaviness, but it's so slow and it's so simple, so it just sort of fell in love with it since then. And then I remember moving. I'd never been in front of like a proper sound system before, and then moving to Bristol and going to teachings in dub, and finally experiencing the sort of like 4-point sound system. And seeing sort of acts like Dub Chasm, Abashanti, and sort of Channel One, and like feeling the weight of it, and I was like, oh no, this is what dance music. This is what music is about. So it was. There's always that sort of element, I think, in any set I do, either club focused or more experimental. I use a mixing desk a lot. I tend to mix quite dub style. So I'll have like sends to, delays and reverbs, and sort of bringing things in and out on the faders, extreme EQing, sort of creating feedback loops and things. It's always, using the desk as an instrument in that very sort of dub style.
Do you have any dub siren, or do you just patch your own one?
Do you know what I do? In fact, it's with a friend of mine, who I believe should be dropping it off to my house at some point soon. I had a gig in London last week, and I left my equipment in her car, and she's just had to drop it off. So I might have to zip off in a minute.
And space.
Do that to step off. The dub siren I use is it's a XIO Technologies dub key. Seb from XIO, I think, had also worked on Imogen Heap's Mio gloves, which was a big like I was very starstruck when I met him because that was a big watershed moment for getting into music technology for me. And he did this run of like 100 dub sirens for the shop. They're digital, they've got a little delay in, and you can sort of create presets of, LFO shapes, waveforms, tuning, and save them to this sort of very clicky bank of mechanical keys at the bottom. And they've become somewhat of like a cult instrument because they stopped making them. And I've seen a few times where people have put videos using them on Instagram, and someone's been like, "Whoa, where did you get this?" And I got the last one. It was the shop display one. We'd sold out of everything else, and I was like, "Right, if I don't get this now, I'm never going to be able to get one." So it came home with me, and it's never left my gig bag since, either for DJ sets or for live sets.
Have you got a tape echo?
No, I use a Bifaco Crush delay. It's a PT2399 chip with a bunch of circuit bending in it, so it sounds very dirty. And if you underclock it, it does this sort of like, insects flying on a, electrical wired noises, which has become a very key part of doing, transitions and stuff for live sets. It's very, very textural delay.
You might already know about this, but I worked out how to use an old regular tape deck as a tape delay. Have you done that?
No, but I know Jack at Beat Boop he's just released a module which allows you to patch into a tape deck and turn it into a tape delay. He always tells me about his sort of tape wizardry, but a lot of it goes over my head, to be honest.
It's the cheapest. The only thing you need is a 3-head tape deck, and they are super cheap. You can get one for probably 50 quid or something. And the third head offers you, like, you might know this, but like when you record onto the tape, you can immediately listen back to what has been recorded onto the tape. And then I usually just wire that up via Ableton and put a delay effect in Ableton, but I turn the feedback down so it doesn't actually produce an echo. It just delays the signal and then sends it back onto the tape, and then the tape sends it back. So you like...
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and then the other thing you can do, you can take any other effect and put in that loop. So you can put the bit crusher, or like saturation or whatever it is, or like high pass filter or something, and then you just get like a real tape echo that's in stereo and costs 1/10 of what the tape, like a space echo costs.
That might be a good idea. I mean, I'm a bit of a DAW phobe when it comes to making music. My computer basically just works as a tape machine. But sounds like a very good way of hacking a tape loop.
But you don't even need Ableton. You can just take a regular delay pedal, I suppose. Just turn the feedback down to 0. So the only thing it does, it just delays passing through the signal without actually producing an echo. So if you got a delay pedal, then you'll be all good.
There's the little...
Oh, wow.
This little guy.
They look like satisfying buttons.
They are, yeah. It's I quite like. I've done a few sets where I've sort of left it just on the table, and then I sort of, as people sort of, you do a live set, people come over and have a nosy, and it's quite a fun one to just sort of give to people and be like, just press the button, see what happens. A little bit of audience participation, and they're all presets, so they're like classic siren sounds or sort of disco tom sounds and things like that, lasery zappy noises. But yeah, reunited with my equipment. Yeah, I had a show in London on Friday for Factory Setting. Do you know Simon Arnold?
No, where's Factory? Where is that?
So Simon runs Synth Shed, which is a great sort of DIY building sort of project / community in London, and they do these nights called Factory Setting, where they'll have a sort of 2-hour EMOM at the start, and then they'll sort of get other artists in as sort of like headliners. And we did a collaborative one, so it was Factory Setting and Machine of Bristonica working together. So we had the EMOM bit at the start. We sort of raffled a couple of tickets to the festival, sold some T-shirts, gave away some sort of tote bags and things. And then Simon played, I played, and Surgeon's Girl headlined. And that was Surgeon's Girl just dropping my synth back
Oh,
after me.
so what's like what venue was that?
That was at Venue MOT in London, sort of Bermondsey way, I think.
Oh, okay.
It's the first time I've been. It's a great little spot. We rocked up for sound check, and it's like it's behind the Millwall football ground,
Oh, yeah.
and it's just this basically industrial estate full of car garages, and then sort of one of them is a nightclub, which is, I mean, I think that's the best spaces. Is industrial estate where you can make loads of noise. Sound system was great, like lovely crowd. Got to see some fantastic performers. It's really really good fun. If you're in London, worth getting down to.
Factory Settings, is that what I should be looking for?
Yes, that's the name of the event.
Okay, cool. I'm going to try, there's something called Crux that's happening next month in London.
Is this the AV show?
It's AV and like electronic music, and I think there will be workshops and gigs and stuff. So I think it's in April, so I'll give that a go.
Yeah, I think a couple of people are playing that. It looks really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think sadly I'm otherwise occupied that weekend, or I'd probably hop on a coach and come check it out.
All right, but I shall let you go in a moment. But before we do that, can we talk about that thing, the book in your bookcase?
Which one?
Okay, the purple one, purple and green, that's facing us. What's
this?
That? Yeah.
This is it's called Satanic Mojo. It's a comic book, very like sort of pulp fantasy comic. I'm a big fan of. I get a lot of my inspiration for music comes from like films and comic artwork. And yeah, this specific sort of like kind of gross, kind of pulpy, slightly psychedelic. I'll like comic books. That's the sort of thing that I'm interested in.
When I went to Bristol, I bought some indie comics in a shop on a corner, really nice, really near Elevator Sounds. I think. It was a little
here gallery,
possibly
on the corner by the traffic lights.
Yes.
I've got loads of comics from them. I've in fact managed to get nearly the complete run of these Bastard Bunny comics, which it's about a bunny who's a punk and he is a bit of a bastard.
Is there a comic? Sorry, go on.
Which was a completely chance find, but I absolutely love them and they will never leave the collection.
So, is there a bit of a comic book scene in Bristol too?
Do you know what? There might well be. It's not something that I've particularly delved into. I had a sort of run of a few years where this sort of blue box here is full of zines from various different protests and punk shows and art zines and things. And I went through a sort of period of collecting those. And there was always like the good markets, good independent illustration markets and art markets, which were good for picking up that sort of thing. But I've been out of it for a few years now. It's still the sort of thing where if I go to a different city, I will try and find a comic book store and try and find something local that's hopefully in English. But yeah, it's I sort of dropped out of that world a bit to focus a bit more on music.
It's difficult to do everything. Anyway, we should.
It is hard.
Yeah. Well, we should probably wrap up. But thank you so much for your time and giving me a little bit of insight into the Bristol world, which I am still puzzled by. But I'm definitely going to come and do some more visits and just explore more. So the tickets out for Bristonica?
Yes, yeah. Tickets are out now. Early birds are sold out. We're on to the general release tickets now, I believe. And we're going to have some news about the first brands that we've got signed up coming hopefully in the next month or so. And then lineup and everything's coming probably over the summer. But yeah, tickets are out now. It's the 26th and 27th of September, I believe. Let me just check that so I'm not giving people the wrong date. Is it the 26th and 27th? 27th and 28th. Yeah. So the 26th is the Friday.
Yeah.
So yeah, last weekend of September at Document in Bristol. We've got tickets for the Saturday alone and for the Sunday. I'd recommend doing the full weekend. The live stage lineup, which is the sort of area that I'm in charge of in the festival, is looking especially good this year, if I don't say so myself.
Any hints? Can you give anything away?
Oh, the no, no, I shouldn't.
Can you say genres? Some genres that will be featured.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we're going to have some sort of cold wavy gothy stuff. There's going to be some textural ambient. There's going to be some very experimental, sort of quite noisy performance stuff. There's definitely going to be some techno and electro. There's going to be some sort of poppy modular explorations. There's going to be some handmade instruments. So one of the goals for programming the live stage at Machina is to showcase a wide range of what people are doing with electronic music hardware. So not just like, here's 12 active people just banging away on modular doing, techno. There are loads of people that do it. There are loads of people that are great at it. There is a much wider world outside that. So trying to sort of cherry pick from local artists or sort of smaller artists from around the UK who we believe are doing really sort of interesting and unique things. And then, of course, getting a few big headliners in because what's a festival without a big headline set?
Looking forward to it. I need to go and get my tickets.
No worries.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for taking your time. All right.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me. And see you in September.
Yeah. All right. Stay on the call. I'll just stop the program.